Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope you're having a good weekend or had a good weekend. Hope it's all been good. I see the stuff constantly coming up on YouTube, ads. Well, I see it everywhere. I see it on Facebook. I see it on YouTube, ads for unlocking the secret to playing great guitar. The secret scale that the pros won't tell you. The secret system that every pro uses. That's all bullshit, man. And all it does is it leads you to somebody's method of basically teaching you music. Okay, and there's one old codger out there who retired, who had a long career, named Jimmy Bruno, who is a jazz player. And he said, there's only one way, and it's learn to read music. It's not that hard. Well, I agree and I disagree, because I know the rudiments of reading music, okay? I could at one time read the music in like the first 4 Mel Bay books or Hal Leonard books. I could read that music and play it. But it's as far as intense music theory, everything I have is built off of experience. And say what you will about my guitar playing at this point, which is mostly acoustic strumming. Back at one time when I was a little more dexterous and agile, I could play some pretty fast stuff, man, you know? But learning to play guitar, there's only one way to do it, and that's to practice. And you have to pick up the guitar from the start and go through the motions of whatever it is that you're trying to play, whether it just be or whatever it is that you're trying to play, or trying to learn to play a chord. Those were the first 2 chords I learned. And when I was a kid, I depended on what I got from my guitar lessons, which was very minimal. I mean, we were talking about book 1, book 2 of Mel Bay, yeah, wanting to play rock and roll, was sitting in my room with my record player over and over. And I figured this out, and I figured it out wrong, but I figured it out one note at a time to go. Now, by that time, I knew the chords E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and I knew some minors, but I figured out and that's wrong. And I've never learned to properly play that song because we were never going to do it. But it was something that I worked on, and something that I found out over the years, which will work for you, is if you just ear things out however you can, however they come out, whether you get all the notes right or you get everything right or not, you're learning. And eventually you'll find out what's right and what's wrong. But it's just that experience. Some of the first stuff I learned was, how's it go? Oh, so it's. And I did it with just bar chords, just. That was off a Humble Pie record. That was off Humble Pie. I learned just that bar chord, playing those bar chords that my brother showed me. Every time he came home, like he was older than me and he left the house when I was pretty young. And when I was like 12 years old or 13 years old maybe, he brought home a beat up SG Junior that had all the finish sanded off of it and gave it to me. And it played pretty well, other than I had trouble getting it in tune because we didn't understand intonation and compensated bridges and all that crap. We didn't understand it, so we had trouble keeping it in tune. But I played on that guitar and hooked my guitar cord up through the record player needle by cutting the ends of the guitar cord off and taking the things off the cartridge and putting the wires on there and playing through my speakers. And I would just hook up bigger speakers to the record player and play like that. But at some point I did get an amplifier, but a couple things that had happened, and I told this story before, but a good friend of mine who was 4 years older than me, but we were really close and when I was in junior high school and he was in high school and getting ready to graduate, his name was Keith. We skipped school on his 18th birthday and sat in a basement and smoked hash and drank a bottle of wine that he swiped out of his sister's house for the day. And we had my guitar, which was a Supro Supro 335 copy, but it was just a red Supro. And he taught me how to play. Well, he didn't teach me how to play the full bar chord because my brother had already done that. So I could play a full bar chord. And I could do it without any, I could keep it together. But he taught me this. He goes, here's a major. Take that finger off. There's a minor. Take this finger off. There's a minor 7. Put that finger back and put this little finger down here. That's a 7. Or just take that finger off. And that's a 7. And he showed me the same thing for here's a major, here's a minor 7, here's a 7. And he taught me that. And he taught me that a D chord is just the C moved up 2 frets. And that the chord travels. So it's C, D, E, F, G. And I learned that from that one lesson, and it stuck in my mind. What he showed me, every bit of it stuck in my mind, and that's how I learned that. Didn't understand it, but I learned it. And I was like 14, and I would take my guitar down on the strip in front of this one arcade where we used to all hang out and pass the guitar around, and everybody would play something on it, and everybody would be, my turn, give me the guitar. And it was a, like I said, a Supro 335 copy, a hollow body with no amp, but you could hear it. But Uh, I learned to play. And that was my contribution, and then other guys were playing other stuff. There were guys that were singing songs and stuff. Well, there was this one dude from Cleveland named Barry that said, yeah, bring your guitar. And his parents had rented the cottage behind the arcade. So I take the guitar and we go back, and he pulls out what I assume, I don't remember, but I'm assuming it was a Fender Stratocaster, a small Fender amp that was probably a Champ, and a big muff, and a Crybaby, a Dunlop Crybaby. And he plugged that thing in, and he started playing, man, and he was playing. And he was playing every. He played a. He played In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, anything that had any kind of fuzz on it, and he was playing that wah-wah pedal, and he blew through probably 10 songs in no time flat. And I sat there with my jaw open. How did you learn that? And he said, well, besides taking guitar lessons, he goes, I figured if I learned one song a day, every day, imagine over time how many songs you would learn. And I was like, you learn one song a day? He goes, oh, no, not really. He goes, but if you learned one song a day, imagine how many songs you'd have in a year. You'd have 365 songs. And my mind was blown by that. And the fact of the time, like in the 80s, you know, when stuff like Huey Lewis was big on the radio, and Journey, and Bruce Springsteen, and we were learning those songs. If you look back at it, a lot of those songs, there's a lot of production, but a lot of the changes and stuff aren't that tough. You know, if you look at Born in the USA or baseball player back in high school, you know, glory days and affected by glory days. And we would pick that stuff out, but I'd picked all that stuff out by ear with no YouTube, no Google, no nothing. Now, the one big thing that I had and where I learned my chords from were fake books. And the biggest one was the Beatles fake book, the big black Beatles book that was 400 some pages that had all the Beatles songs in it. And they had the little chord diagrams, and they didn't tell you what finger to put where, but they told you what frets had to be fretted, so you had to figure that out. And after a while, you would figure out how to fret those chords. That was a huge help, was using those chord diagrams and using those fake books to learn songs. Like I told before, I used to go to Simon's Music Store and go in and get the newest fake books of hits and go through them and look for the songs I wanted and try to memorize them right there in the music store. And the owner of the music store didn't give a shit, you know, as long as I didn't like spit in the book or whatever. He didn't care. And when I had the money, I would buy a book. I bought lots of books. Usually I would buy them when they went into the sale bin. But I would get the books, and I used to have a stack of fake books like this big. I had Led Zeppelin, I had Aerosmith, I had Warren Zevon, I had the Beatles fake book, I had a Rolling Stones book. So, and then a bunch of compilation books that were just the hits of the time, you know, the pop hits and rock hits of the time. But the biggest thing was just sitting down with that record player and the needle and dropping the needle and hearing a note and finding that first note and then stopping it and going back and getting the second note and then stopping it and dropping it again and getting that third note. However you could hear it and however you could figure out how to play it. And that trains your ear and it trains your hand. There's really no better way. Now, a lot of these people that do these lessons on YouTube or they have YouTube channels, and I go to lesson guys all the time to figure out how to play songs, and I can figure it out, but why don't I just watch how this guy does it? That's how you know, I've always known how to go. I do that part just by recognizing how that would be played. But to learn a version of the song, I had to go watch somebody play it. So I did, rather than just drop the needle over and over or use the tape deck when we got the cassette tape and go back and forth. Or a video where I could just use the mouse and stop and back the video up, which is how I did it. But a lot of these big YouTubers that sell their courses, with the exception of Rick Beato, who doesn't make any claims, but these guys, they'll tell you their super system, buy their super system. Some of these guys are Berkeley graduates, and I think they should be ashamed of themselves to think that they could sell something that is the magic bullet that will turn you into a guitar player. The only way you're going to get there is putting the time in and learning how to play. That's it. And you know, like Jimmy Bruno said, there's no memorizing the notes on the fretboard. You have to learn to read music. You have to learn how music works. You have to learn how the instrument works, and you'll know what the notes are. And you'll notice in a lot of my videos, I'll play chords that I'll switch them up because when we're doing the chords, it's during the verse, I'm and I was doing that. And let's see if I can get it right now. So I went. I just came up with that at rehearsal on Friday. I came up with that part to play like for the intro and the outro instead of just playing. So I don't know what I'm trying to say here. You have to know how things work, but the only way to get there is to practice and figure things out. That's why I've never bought anybody's like super system or their guitar courses, because I don't know what I'm going to learn from it. Other people, results may vary, but the best way to learn is using your ear to train your fingers how to just find the notes that you need to play something. And that's like picking out solos. Now, if you had no idea how that went and you had to learn it, you would have to start from scratch, and you would have to start the song, and you would have to find the first note, the second note. And it teaches you technique, because at some point you'll start to hammer and pull off, because you'll recognize that sound. I can't do it. Anyway, that's the best way, in my mind, to learn how to play your songs, and playing with other people. Working stuff out together. We did that for years. We used to we'd make the parts up to songs. I remember in the very first band I was in, our biggest song was and the other guitar player, figured out how to play some lead to it, and we faked it. We faked our way through these songs, but we put them over. So, all right, folks, that's my video. Please check out my Patreon. I would love for you to come over to Patreon and support me over there. And I hope you have a good week. I hope you don't get too much snow and too much cold. And I'll see you in the next video. Oh, and thanks for watching.